Right. Right. Well, thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I'm going to talk very briefly just to say this is the introduction to the RDA UK webinar, the first webinar of the RDA UK node. We've got 4 speakers who can introduce themselves and do the presentations. It's Hilary Hanahau, Sarah Garabelli, Juan Bicaragui, Kevin Ashley, and then at the end we're going to have a Q&A session, so I'm trying to monitor the chat as well. And that's a good point because there's a chat window there, but hopefully you can all see the Q&A button as well. And if you have any questions at any time during the webinar, please put the question into that Q&A. I mean, I'll monitor the chat anyway, but if you could put them into the Q&A, that'd be great help. And then at the end, we'll go through those questions for the last 10 minutes and answer them then. So without further ado, I think that's pretty much it, and I haven't missed anything else. I'll hand over to Hilary. And I'll stop sharing.
Hello. Sorry. Share. Good morning. Sorry, I just get used to this thing because it doesn't let you. There we go. So, good morning to you all. Thanks for joining us this morning on the webinar, and many thanks to JISC and TFC, of course, the UK node of the Research Data Alliance, for organising the webinar and for inviting me to introduce the Research Data Alliance to you. I've been the Secretary General since the beginning of this year, and I'm very pleased to be here to give an overview of more the global aims and visions of RDA. Okay, so I know I've seen some of the names on the list. Some of you I know, I'm sure some of you are quite familiar with the research. I'm going to give you some overviews anyway of what the Research Data Alliance is, and it's always useful, I think, to go into what the vision and mission of the Research Data Alliance are. If you can hear the bells in the background, I apologise. There's not much I can do about that if I don't mute. So the Research Data Alliance has a fairly ambitious vision, as you know, and you can see it there. It's that researchers and innovators are openly share data across technologies, disciplines, and countries to address the grand challenges of society. And basically, we strive to support many different stakeholders and data professionals to find solutions for enabling, well, fair and beyond, I suppose, data across those technologies and the disciplines and the countries. And it's simply because the grand challenges of society are everybody's challenges, and being able to sort of find and access and interoperate and reuse, etc., the research data offers, you know, limitless possibilities to everyone. But I'm guessing that you probably know that already, as you are, many of you are the stakeholders to whom RDA addresses itself anyway. So how do we intend to do that? Well, that's our ambitious vision, and the mission is to build the social and technical bridges that enable the open sharing and reuse of data. So it sounds easy. Well, I mean, our mechanism for doing that is quite simple, to be honest, and straightforward, but it's considerably successful. And I'll give you a few words then on the history of RDA and a little understanding, particularly from a global perspective. So I think we've used a metaphor over the years since the RDA was set up in 2013 about letting 1,000 flowers bloom. Or indeed, it's been likened also to a hothouse where, you know, the plants are nurtured and grown and things. But I think what's important is that to understand is that RDA has a grassroots and very inclusive approach to cover all the data lifecycle stages in engaging data producers and users and stewards to address data exchange, processing and storage problems, etc. And it's the very important thing is that it's a neutral platform where international research data experts meet to exchange views and to agree on topics including, you know, the social hurdles that are found for data sharing and education and training, the data management plans, certification of data repositories, disciplinary and interdisciplinary operability aspects, as well as, you know, many other technological aspects. And it's open, important to say that it's open to all scientific domains and disciplines. Research Data Alliance, I mentioned many different sort of, if you like, terms there, literally because it's quite broad, and there are quite a number of different groups. But the important thing, I think, is that it's by and for the international data experts. So the mechanisms which we facilitate as an alliance are very much coming from the people on the ground, like yourselves, who have challenges, solutions that you wish to resolve or identify, and that is then you as the experts and you as the community that define the, shall we say, the parameters of that. So before I tell you how the mechanisms around RDA, just at the moment, so RDA is who it's made up of, or what we call these international data experts. Who are they? I prefer to call it the RDA community. So we have over 7,500 members at the moment from 137 countries across the globe. Clearly, the continental distribution is heavily weighted for the Northern Hemisphere. There is a clear reason behind this, and that is actually that the Research Data Alliance, set up in 2013, has been financially supported by the European Commission, the US government, and Australia. And each of those three continents have specific programs running in their continents, in their regions, and clearly there's more awareness raising, outreach and activity going on there. However, we do very much care and worry about the whole world, and we are 137 different countries, and all of our activities are focused on ensuring that it is as international, as open and as inclusive as possible. About 67% of these members come from research and academia, and interestingly, about just over 1,500 of them classify themselves as researchers in their field or domain or area of work. So in pragmatic terms, how do they, and you, of course, get involved in RDA work? So RDA has two major mechanisms, and that's what we call the work of RDA, or the heart of RDA. They are, we could set up working groups or interest groups, and they are self-formed, as I said before, by volunteers from across the globe to resolve and discuss specific research data management challenges. So in terms of the working groups, they develop and implement data infrastructure. So for example, things around like tools or policy, practices and products that are used and hopefully adopted and used by projects and organizations and communities across the globe. They run from, we say 12 to 18 months, but to be honest, sometimes a little bit longer. At the moment, we have 33 different working groups, and there is a sort of a classification of them in the RDA in a nutshell presentation that we make available on a monthly basis through the communications kit or about RDA area of the website. Those 33 working groups come out with? Well, we have different types of outputs in RDA, and the working group outputs are recommendations, we call them, or flagship outputs, and they're concrete deliverables. They are endorsed. We do actually have a mechanism in Europe for them to be proposed as technical specifications, which is basically the same idea as a standard, because the RDA is not a standards body, but we do promote and support as much as possible the creation of standards, and in many times the outputs that come and the recommendations from the working groups are indeed could go down the route of standards with the appropriate standards bodies. So, and then on the other hand, we have interest groups. They focus on solving a specific data sharing problem and identifying what kind of infrastructure might need to be built around that and things like that. Frequently, what happens, well, there's no time length on an interest group because obviously it's more of a discussion, more of an area for collaboration. What we often see happening though are two things. One is that they spin off into a more focused working group, and that of course is one of our great hopes for the interest groups, but also that they come out themselves with outputs, what we call supporting outputs. And they can be, as you see there, new case statements, but also guidelines and best practices. And for example, I think some of the more well-known of our outputs would be things like the legal interoperability guidelines. That's an output from an interest group. The 23 things for research data, that's also from an interest group. We have 61 interest groups running at the moment. Again, covering a huge range of different areas. So I would invite you to check out sort of the classification, if you like, in very loose terms as to where they fit into the sort of data life cycle. So, you know, open science, open data, how does RDA support that? Do we have a relationship to the European Open Science Cloud? And indeed, not just the European Open Science Cloud, but other international efforts of a type like, you know, the NIH Data Commons, the African Open Science Platform, the French National Open Science Strategy, and indeed any strategies in the UK that there are, or the FAIR concept. Well, I mean, when we think about these different initiatives in open science, I think there are concepts, you know, that come to mind about ensuring collaborative and collective work, ensuring that the scientific research and data and dissemination is accessible to all levels of society, that the knowledge is transparent and accessible and shared as well, and developed through collaborative networks. And all these sort of concepts, RDA supports the design and the development of solutions and best practices that support the realization of these fundamental aspects, and part of which, of course, are the principles of open science. In terms of the European Open Science Cloud, I think RDA, the Research Data Alliance, is one of the many organizations that has a key role in supporting the European Open Science Cloud and working together with Europe and internationally. I think the RDA can bring a very good international perspective to the Open Science Cloud, and we hope to do that. And for example, the working and interest group mechanism is one of the ways that this could be, you know, pragmatically put into place. So, if you allow I like metaphors sometimes, so and give me the liberty of comparing the world of open science to seas and you know, oceans and the world seas. It is clear that it's a really huge and vast area, just like open science, and it has many facets. You know, the seas, and they have currents, they have tides, they have wind. And many, many obstacles. And it's very hard sometimes to navigate and sail. So I think open science and open data, like the seas, they are global, they're international. And of course, while it's essential to have national and indeed local initiatives and activities, the international perspectives are really important to have on the horizon and to be tapped into. But it's also true that the national and the local perspectives must also be on the international horizon. And I think RDA provides that mechanism of ensuring this two-way, shall we say, navigation. So if we keep with the metaphor of ships, to navigate these seas, there are many, many ships and vessels, just as we said, there are many aspects of open science that need to be tackled and resolved. And these challenges they are global, and the solutions must be inclusive. We believe they must benefit all and harness all the energies that there are, and that no parts of the world and no disciplines should be left behind. I think the Research Data Alliance is one such vessel, okay, that can offer support and practical solutions in identifying these best practices and standards for research data. But I'd like it to be very clear that RDA contributes to part of this open science challenge and part of the many initiatives that all of you and all the digital data challenges that we all face. But as a grassroots and bottom-up initiative, it's open and available for you, the community, to leverage upon. And the African proverb, which says, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. I really believe in collaboration and cooperation, and that we can work together to achieve these things. And that's what RDA is all about. There are many, many initiatives that are and activities that are working towards similar aims from different perspectives and community needs. But I think that it's our duty as professionals in this area to work together and to serve the community and researchers and innovators and users and all the people that we spend our daily lives working to support. So as I said, the Research Data Allianceship is one of the many. It has a specific support mechanism that it can do. It is open to all. And indeed, but before you come on board, there is one thing we ask you to put in your suitcase. And it is to abide by our 6 guiding principles. These are the values on which the Research Data Alliance is built and on which all of our strategies are founded. They are the 6 guiding principles of openness, consensus, balance, harmonization, that all the activities are done with a community-driven approach, and that the solutions identified are non-profit and technology neutral. And these principles, if adhered to by all, would ensure the open, transparent and collaborative working environments, okay, to all as a start. So to join, you can simply visit the website, and this is from the homepage. If you see the button on the registration, or the link is there on the bottom. So I think I will conclude, and just to say, as I said, that there are we are one of the actors, the Research Data Alliance, but it can support in providing the community to navigate the open science oceans with all the other stakeholders in your national community and internationally, and to support you in achieving your open science and open data goals. I think that through engaging with the Research Data Alliance, you can make a really essential contribution to achieving the visions. RDA is here to facilitate that in any way it can. So if you're not engaged with RDA, I do hope that you will become so even more after today's webinar. And of course, in addition to the support that RDA can provide, I would like to give my personal support in any way that I can to help with the RDA the creation and the support and the increase of the wonderful community that we already have in the UK, and in any way that I can. So thank you for your attention, and I'll pass to my colleagues.
Thank you, Hilary. Right, we'll move swiftly on to Sarah. I haven't seen any questions pop up yet, but if you have any, please again put it in the Q&A. Oh, one's popped up there, and I'll sort those out at the end. So we'll move straight on to Sarah.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope you can see my screen. So I'm sorry I can turn on my camera as I don't have a very stable internet connection, so I hope everything goes well. First of all, thanks a lot to the UK node for inviting me today to give this presentation about the RDA Europe project. So I'm Sara Garavelli, and I'm the coordinator of the RDA Europe 4 project, which is the European chapter of the Research Data Alliance. Launched this year, the project is mandated to support the RDA global mission and become the centerpiece for the European Open Science Strategy, also contributing to address the European Open Science Cloud and the digital single market issues, as mentioned by Hilary. One of the innovative aspects of the RDA Europe Project 4 is the establishment of a capillary network of nodes to foster adoption of the RDA outputs. At the start of the project in March 2018, 9 nodes were set up: Spain, France, Ireland, UK, Netherlands, Germany, Finland, Italy, and Greece. We are currently in the process to establish 4 additional nodes: Denmark, Slovenia, Portugal, and Austria. And the final aim is to reach a complete coverage of the European region. So let's have a look at what we exactly mean when we talk about a node. So a node can be a single organization or a group of organizations representing one or more countries which are committed to support research data policies at national and regional level, promoting the research data management best practices and solutions, and actively engage in RDA. The RDA nodes receive seed funding from the European Commission via the RDA Europe 4 project to get started. So this seed funding is used by the node to get organized and to start putting in place all the structures and activities that can make it sustainable after the end of the project. What are the duties of a national node? So the nodes are expected to support data research at regional, national, local level, promoting the RDA vision and results through several actions, including also events. They are expected to synergize with the national, European, and global organizations in concrete actions to facilitate the uptake of the RDA recommendations and principles. They need to act as central contact point between the national, regional data practitioners and RDA, especially interacting also with national research funding bodies. They, of course, contribute to the definition of European data policies. And finally, they're also called to contribute to the definition of the RDA's strategy. If you're interested in understanding more about the nodes, you can check out on the RDA website the national group pages. And here on the slides, you have the URL. In particular, the scope of this webinar is to launch the UK node. So I put on the slides also the URL of the UK national group page for your reference. One of the added value of the nodes is really establishing close link with the national communities and supporting them to get engaged in RDA. Therefore, I invite you to frequently check the national group pages to get updates about the open calls issued by the European project. These open calls are aimed to provide financial support to organizations and individuals to actively contribute to RDA. In particular, as you can see on these slides, at the moment there is a call open for adoption grants. If you are an organization willing to adopt an RDA output or recommendation, the RDA Europe project makes available 8 grants for an individual value of 50k euro. To apply, you can check the website that is on these slides, and the deadline is the 4th of March next year. In addition to grants for organizations, we also have grants to support the contributions of experts and early careers to the RDA plenaries. The next plenary is in Philadelphia, and the call for experts and early career is open. So if you're interested, please go on the website where you can submit your application. And just for your information, after Philadelphia, maybe you already know this, but we will have our European plenary in Finland from the 23rd to the 25th of October 2019. So please mark this date in your agenda. Finally, we have recently closed a call for ambassadors. So the ambassador program offers a series of grants targeting domain experts who can develop a two-way communication, promoting the RDA outputs and recommendations in their community, while streaming insights from domain-focused data communities into RDA. But a new call for ambassador will open in February 2019. So this is another opportunity. This slide closes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, so we've had the RDA global perspective, and Sarah's talked through the RDA Europe and current grants and calls. So that moves nicely on to Juan, who's going to talk more about the UK national node.
Hello. Let me just see if I can sort out this screen sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yes, but not the slides just yet.
Okay. Still not there?
Nope. Oh, there we are.
Okay, good. So, thank you, and thank you to everyone for coming to listen. I'm Juan Picarregui, and Chris and I are the sort of coordinators of the national node. I'm going to give you an outline of what we think the national node can do, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the current status of RDA membership in the UK. But in some ways, I'm just repeating what Sarah has just said. The national nodes are for. And I think one of the things we need to start now is a discussion amongst ourselves, amongst those people interested in what special things the UK can do. So this is not a very prescriptive talk. It's more, here are some areas, and please engage and give us your views about what value we can add through the UK national node. So here are the things that we're sort of down to do as part of the RDA Europe project. Our purpose is to engage with the UK's research community, to participate in RDA activities and adopt RDA outputs. We imagine we're going to do that by running some events, whether they're webinars like this, face-to-face meetings like the one we're organising for January, maybe we'll run training courses, etc. We want to be a forum for discussion amongst the UK community about things relevant for RDA. We want to provide some coordination for those events and discussions, and most importantly, perhaps support the people in their participation in RDA things. We'll clearly do some promotion of European participation in RDA, and Sarah's just been through the list of things that are currently active, so that's happening. We want to disseminate the RDA activities and outputs, encourage participation again, and leverage, so this is more important, leverage on the local knowledge and the local things we're doing in the UK, and try and sort of liaise between things that are happening in the UK and things that are happening in RDA, in particular with the funding bodies. And the node is delivered by SGFC and JISC, and of course JISC and SGFC are both funding bodies themselves, so it's quite appropriate that we're in a good position, I think, to have that conversation. And just as an aside, mostly because some of the other nodes are planning to set up legal entities, we're not at the moment planning to set up any sort of RDA UK legal entity. We don't feel the need for that, but certainly that could be something that we might discuss in future, but I don't think it's needed right now. So that's sort of the general things that national nodes do. I mean, in particular, what special things might we do in the RDA in the UK? Well, obviously, RDA generally is liaising with EOSC, and Hilary made an emphasis on that. I think RDA is going to have a very important role to play in EOSC. But I think in the UK we can help that along even more, because through ourselves at SGFC, we're doing a lot of things with the EOSC, at least for the time being. We're coordinating the EOSC pilot project and the FREYA project, which is another core infrastructural project for EOSC around persistent identifiers, participating in the Secretariat and the FAIRS Fair projects. So there's a lot of access that we can have through those projects to EOSC activities. I'll go through some numbers in a minute, showing you a little bit about UK participation in RDA, how many people we have doing various things. So we are, in fact, in a very strong role there, pretty much second to the USA in terms of participation in RDA things in the UK. So I think we should make use of that and try and use this strong participation to start a community more in the UK. We have a long-standing relationship with RDA Council and with the Foundation. The Foundation is actually based in the UK. That's the Global RDA Foundation, and we've had strong participation in the Council through co-chairing of the Organisation Advisory Board. I did that for several years, and Kevin is now doing that, and we'll talk about that after me. We're also through the projects of providing admin support for the Secretary General, so there's a strong thing there. And it's really, I think, what we need to do now is think how we can use all those things we're doing together and coordinate across them to maximise the benefit for the UK people who are involved in RDA. Lastly, hopefully, and this is a hopefully because there's not even a call out yet, let alone a response, hopefully we'll host a plenary at some time in the future. Sarah just said the next European plenary will be in Helsinki So we're probably talking about 18 months after that, in around about 2.5 years, hopefully we'll be able to host a plenary. So here are a few numbers. As of this morning, 722 members on the UK RDA UK mailing list. So those are all the people who signed up to RDA who are based in the UK. And that is a large number of people, obviously. It's the second largest after the UK, I think. I haven't checked every single one. The USA have far more than that. I suspect the third largest is Germany. They've got 531. I'd be very surprised if there's another country out there with more, but it takes it's time consuming to go through each one. So, but I'm pretty sure we're the second largest. We've had very good participation at all the at all the plenaries. We had 40 attendees who went down to Gaborone in Botswana for IDW. I think that was probably third to the locals, that's the Botswanans and South Africans, and the USA, so fourth. We had 67 attendees at the RDA plenary in Berlin, so obviously the European plenaries are going to get more participation from European members. I'll show you some graphs in a moment. And again, second to the USA and the local hosts. There's a trend there I'll show you in a moment. So I don't have a graph like this for Gaborone, but Gaborone was a special event anyway, so it's perhaps more informative to look at what happened in Berlin. And you can see here, the local host always has the largest number of, well, always, I think mostly has the largest number of members. United States usually comes second just because of their sheer scale. And here in Berlin, we were third, and then you can see the other countries in Europe who are strong participants. There's a fairly close correspondence to those countries that have national nodes, but it's not one-to-one. Now, moving on, this is the last slide I've got. I'm sorry, it looks a bit of a mess. It was quite hard to present all this information in a nice way. These are attendees across the first 11 plenaries. Again, I haven't done the Botswana one. And you can see that the United States are always the largest. That's not surprising. And in particular, when it has been hosted in the USA, you can see these three spikes. The participation in the USA is even bigger. And then if you look at the peak in each one, obviously the local host always gets the most. So here, the Berlin plenary, Germany was the highest. Here in Japan, Japan was the highest. Here at P6, I guess that was the Paris one because France was the highest, etc. But the thick black line is the UK participation, and we're always there, you know, in the largest slot apart from the local hosts in the USA. So I think that shows a lot of potential in what we could do. But we are at the start of trying to organise things now, and so we're really in listening mode, I think, to hear suggestions for the kind of things that we could do in the UK with the UK members that would help support and help them participate in RDA. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Juan. I've seen there's been a few questions coming in, but I'm going to save those for the end and hand over to Kevin.
Chris, while Kevin's getting ready, could I just, one thing I forgot.
Okay.
No, just to say, because we talked about the EOSC, but maybe not everybody knows it, and Juan didn't say it. But
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Juan is our official Research Data Alliance representative on the EOSC Executive Board, which is wonderful, and we are very grateful to him for accepting this job, and we're delighted that he actually was selected for it. But that's it, and even, you know, it's an excellent connection for the UK, for RDA. To highlight that, so thank you.
Yes, of course, Hilary, I should have mentioned that, sorry.
There have been some questions answered as well. Sorry, Kevin, there have been some questions answered in the Q&A, but I'll go through the ones that haven't been answered at the end. But over to you, Kevin.
Okay, thanks very much. So we've gone from that global scale down to the scale of the UK in looking at the Research Data Alliance. And I'm going to go in a slightly different direction now and look at the particular role that organisations can play in the Research Data Alliance, and I hope to convince some of you to convince your organisations that aren't already members to consider organisational membership of the RDA. And even if you don't do that, at least to understand the particular role that organisations, as opposed to individuals and national nodes, play in this global organisation. And yeah, okay, having problem moving the slides forward there. So this is a slide that I think Hilary may already have used, which is attempting to summarise much of the the vision and mission of RDA. But I want to highlight two particular areas of this. Some numbers again about the number of organisational members we have, and there are also a number of organisations described as affiliates. I won't go into detail in the few minutes we have now about the distinction there, but also these things called adoption cases. We're doing all this work to develop guidelines and standards to do with research data, not simply because they're interesting challenges to work on, but because we want to see use that brings benefits, that leads to greater data sharing. And one of the ways we do that is not just developing the work, but actually getting people to adopt it, to describe the adoption and the benefits and the challenges sometimes that adoption brought. And organisations are key to making that happen. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. But some of the benefits that I think an organisation can get from joining RDA as an organisational member is that you're bringing a different perspective on the work of RDA, something that's different from the perspective of the individual, whether that individual is a researcher or somebody responsible for data stewardship. Organisations are made up of their members, but they have slightly different goals and indeed challenges to adoption than individuals face. You also get the chance to influence working groups before they begin by being able to comment on draft working group statements, particularly I think with the view of whether you believe that working group is going to produce something which you can at least consider for adoption. And you also get to intervene at the end stage organisationally of the life of working groups and assisting in the implementation and adoption of those outputs. You get a voice in a number of organisational forums. You get regular customizable updates on the work of RDA that are produced specifically for organisational members and designed to allow you to either simply pass them on internally as they are, or to chop and change them around simply to highlight the things that you think are of interest to your organisation. And that answers to some extent, I think, one of the questions that was raised in the chat by Joy about a way to summarise for members all the activity that's going on at RDA. There is a lot of it. You also get to attend meetings of the organisational assembly. You get votes on proposed policies. You get a voice on the council through the organisational advisory board, which you get the chance to put your members up for election to. And you also get, it's a two-way street there, as well as being able to provide input to council. We get regular briefings from council and from the secretariat through Hilary to the organisational assembly. And there's recognition of the contribution your organisation makes as a supporter of RDA. And one of the benefits RDA gets out of this is that it's a slightly different voice. So this slide here is another way of looking at the membership. Hilary showed a breakdown of how members categorise themselves in terms of their job role. This is how individual members categorise themselves in terms of the organisation they come from. And you can see there's a big bias there, certainly a large number from academia or research, whereas the organisational members, represented here by their logos, still has a significant representation of academia or research, but I'd say there's a more diverse group there, which means that RDA, through the organisational membership, is learning about the challenges, the benefits of sharing research data from a wider range of organisations. And that's really important, that we don't just focus on the academic use case if we really want to get maximum take up. So organisations can be of any type as long as they sign up to those principles, the 6 principles that Hilary mentioned, that RDA wants to follow. There's a really simple online application process. I mentioned you get the representation of the assembly, candidates for the board, and a voice on a council. And there's a simple processes document if you're interested in more in understanding that distinction that I mentioned between organisation members and affiliates, and the roles of those different parts of the governing bodies. So I said adoption is one of the key areas in which we think organisations have a voice, and I think it's also one of the benefits that we certainly have gained through my own organisation's membership of RDA. It's helped us build partnerships that have sustained solutions that we developed locally that we were aware we'd have difficulty sustaining in the long term. By joining together with other organisations through RDA, we've been able to see things grow and are now maintained by a group of people worldwide. RDA gains benefits from that engagement because although there are some things that can take off at a very grassroots level through individual researchers adopting them, there are lots of the solutions we're looking at where technical brilliance alone isn't enough. We need to see adoption at organisational level to get the real benefits. We all understand that unlocking value for data is a key competitive advantage, and the organisations that recognise that, I hope, will see also the benefits of engaging with RDA to see that happen. So one of the other things we like to do with organisations is actually to get some use cases, some stories that helps us promote the value of some of the work RDA does. And I think it helps you as your organisation get some greater publicity for some of the work you're doing in relation to data and highlight how you're meeting those challenges and hopefully leading rather than following in a number of these areas. And I'll end by mentioning some of the support that Sarah Garivelli has already touched on in her presentations in terms of grants that are available to encourage you to look at adopting some RDA outputs. There's an open call at the moment for relatively modest grants up to €15,000. We're going to support up to 8 projects. This is being done through RDA Europe. And you've got until March the 4th to make applications for those. So what we're looking at is for people who will pick some particular RDA output, attempt to do some adoption, and share with us both the benefits of doing that and any challenges you faced, and doing that for the benefit of others. And at that point, I'll stop, and hopefully we can get into some discussion and answer some of those questions that have come up during the presentation so far. Thanks all.
Thanks, Kevin. Right, we've had. Hopefully, everyone can see the Q&A box, and I'll just go through these and read them out. Some have been answered. I won't go through those just yet. But one from Sean here is about: is there any intention for national nodes to set up national interest groups? If so, can RDA facilitate joining with other national interest groups where there is an overlap?
I could answer that, I think, if it's possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually very clear, Sean, on, because Sean Vitt sent the question, is it sort of interest groups? What we do have on, and there is already, I believe, is national areas on the website. Yeah, so they work in the same way, if you like, as interest for a working group from a virtual and collaborative point of view. Basically, so the European project does have this coordination of the national nodes. The national nodes will have workshops. I think a workshop next year at least is happening where there will be some coordination, and I think that's also where areas of overlap or synergies can be found. So I would probably say that RDA on a from facilitates it to a certain extent. If that's, I hope that answers it correctly. But of course, if there's a need and an understanding as to why it could happen, we could see what we could do about it. But
I think it's just a matter of labelling. I think, you know, this group will become a national interest group, but I don't think it's a RDA interest group, because the interest groups are RDA global things. So I can understand Sean's suggestion that we should do something like this, but I don't think the interest group is the right, or the normal RDA interest group is the right mechanism for it. So we should set something up in the UK.
Okay. Oops, the one I was just about to read out has been answered. So,
sorry about that.
that's all right. But I was gonna. I will go to that because it's been. Actually, no, I won't go to that one just yet because there was John's was above that. So I'll go in order. John Hancock said, general but also specific question. Elixir is the S3 for life science data, which has national nodes in the same countries as those being set up by the RDA. Has any thought been given as to how these nodes might interact?
I can say something on this question.
Okay, Sarah.
I mean, I think this is a very good question, and of course, the answer is that we really encourage this synergy at national level between among the different initiatives. Just for your information, so we started back in April with, for example, a joint webinar run by Open Air, the Open Air nodes, and involving the EGI and GIs, where we start discussing potential synergies between these initiatives at national level. We had a follow-up workshop in conjunction with this year edition of the Digital Infrastructure for Research event, where we extended the network to the GÉANT NRNs and the PRAISE national contact points. So I think it's really a very good idea also to expand this discussion and include Elixir in this conversation, and we are actually planning to have a session next April in conjunction with the EOSCAB week to bring forward the discussion. And I think that what we discovered so far in these kind of interactions is that there are lots of collaboration that can be established and leveraged on by the different initiatives. And also, I think we all realize that we are all working for the same purpose and objective. So we can really, the different initiatives can really support each other, especially at national level, also for strengthening the dialogue with the policy makers.
If anyone wants to come back to follow up on their question after the answer, please just comment on there. I can also give people the power of being able to talk if they want to do that as well. I'll move on to Joy. I know Kevin's sort of answered that there, but it's been supported by a couple of other people about how the UK node could help UK members, which obviously Juan and I definitely want to hear about that. About yes, it is hard to keep up, and we've talked about doing this through a newsletter, regular newsletter to the members. Joyce saying it'd be good if the UK node could summarise the key outputs and activities of the working groups each month, also in a really easy to digest way, perhaps a few bullet points circulated by email each month. What has ever happened, and more importantly, how outputs might be engaged with a practical sense. Yes, and Kevin said that, mentioned this, the benefit of the organisational membership received as one of the benefits of their paid membership. And yes, and as I was saying, and one probably want to say more about this, about we're looking at how we can do that through a newsletter, and also we need to find out about how these outputs are being used. So I think it's a sort of two-way thing. But yes, that's definitely something we want to do. Ron, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just agree with you, Chris. Yeah, that would be a very good thing to do, and now that we have a few people who've suggested and seconded it, maybe we should discuss with them a bit more precisely what they have in mind. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't know if other countries are doing similar. That would be another interesting thing to do, to see if the other national nodes are doing similar. Then obviously we can share the work in producing those things, and then just give it a UK flavour.
I believe at least one is I can't remember if it's Germany or Austria who are doing something similar. But I kind of promote that. It'd be great if the UK Note were able to do this, but for those of you who can't wait, organisational membership is available now.
Kevin's great. Good, Kevin. The French also do something. There are different initiatives, of course, because of linguistic aspects too. So, but the French do have, different mechanisms that they use. I think it's actually worth finding that out. National Node coordination aspect. But I can send you also a few notes on what I know of what the others are doing. Facilitate conversation. And what was requested, by the way, because the French had a meeting last week, and there were a lot of ideas and requests came out. Now, not all of them will be able to be satisfied by the national node, I believe, but ideas on what they wanted to do, including this idea about a national events and annual come together and forums and things.
I've realised they've listed some of these questions, these responses as dismissed. I haven't dismissed them. They've been answered, even though they're not in the answered section. But and Sean says there about agreeing with Joe and Rosie about benefit from an annual RDA National Jamboree. Discuss face to face. I'll mention finally when we finish with all the questions, the first workshop, which is coming up, and that's on the final slide. It might just be worth going through some of the answered questions here. Paul Walker asked earlier on about clarifying the non-profit principle, but you've answered that anyway by saying means the RDA does not promote, endorse or sell commercial products, technologies or services. About the call for the Helsinki plenary, I think that's going to come after, or that will come after the Philadelphia one. I believe that's right. You do one at a time. So, but I don't think there's a date for that. But you've clarified here though that Aalto University is hosting the plenary meeting, and there are 6 organisations involved. As John has said, Aalto University is a member of Attract. I'm thinking about running a session on open data for open innovation. I'm going through this because we've got time, but I'm sure people have read these anyway. But I thought it's probably just worth doing that, particularly for the recording anyway, if people play this afterwards. Okay, some more coming in now. John, while RDA is bottom up, there is a major need for political engagement despite the current mess in the UK. It would be worth talking to specific policy advisors on the impact of open data. One of my ex-postdocs, Dr. Diana Beach, is the senior advisor to the Secretary of State for HE. She would be a good starting point. Treasury will need a good case studies on the impact. I don't know who wants to answer that one.
Well, I'll start by saying absolutely. I think there's a dual issue here. John has mentioned, the UK node is in a really strong position to provide that engagement politically in the UK. But I'd also say the other side of this is that, as Fran pointed out, the UK is, in a sense, overrepresented in RDA globally. It has a degree of influence and a voice that's a tribute, I think, to the strength of these areas in dealing with research data in the UK. And so this is still an area where we have a global voice that hopefully will be less affected by some of those things. So we can also, to the UK node, get that political influence locally. I think we can make those two play very well together.
Okay. If no one else wants to respond to that,
yeah, just one point.
Hilary?
Yeah, on that is, in fact, just to say to underline what Kevin said, I didn't talk about it today, but RDA has a regional engagement strategy that we've just still in consultation phase, but it is the sustainability plan for RDA on a global level going forward. And indeed, this part that John talks about, connections, and establishing the connections on a sort of political level are very, very important. That aspect of it is important to us as well, but it wasn't brought up today in this particular webinar.
A question from Ian Bruno: is reaching out into the wider research community, academic and industrial, a role the UK node can play, in particular to those who are unlikely to engage in RDA activities directly, specifically to promote the benefits of RDA outputs and also to channel wider needs back into RDA? I don't know who wants to answer that.
I can give it a go. I think yes. I think when we do the RDA activities, we'll promote them as widely as we can. And because they're local, I think we've got a better chance of people giving it a go and trying it, both academics and industrials, Ian. So I think that's absolutely what we'll do. But it's part of the promotion of the things we're doing. Unless, if you had any suggestions for further things we can do, please put them in.
So I'll just stop sharing my screen because I had that pop-up thing coming back. I'll show it back in a minute. Gary Baker, is there any breakdown of the UK membership numbers to specific RDA working interest groups so we see which areas are the specific focus of the UK node interest and see which may be a focus point for you? UK RDA workshops or meetings, or are we spread across all RDA groups? That's a good point, and I think we've done stats on membership. I don't think we've looked at individual groups as such, but that's something we could definitely do, I think.
Yeah, I don't have easy access to that data. Perhaps RDA Europe does.
Yeah,
Sarah?
exactly. Yeah, I think that as a RDA Europe project, we can provide this sort of stats. Yeah,
that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Let me just try sharing the screen again. Okay, I think that's all the questions answered. Move them over to that. If anyone wants to ask a question in the next minute, I'll move on to the next slide and I'll check if there's any more open questions coming up. But just to finally say, well, thank you to Hilary, Sarah, Juan and Kevin. But this moves nicely on to the next activity events that we're planning under the RDA UK node. And that is, we'll be running a workshop on the 18th of January. I mean, I've promoted a bit quietly already, but so you might have seen the registration page already. But that's going to be a half-day workshop. The plan is over 2019 and into the beginning of 2020 to run 3 workshops in total. So there'll be another one later in the year, but this is the first one. So there's a draft agenda, which I won't go into now, but if you want to go and look at the registration page, there's a draft agenda on there talking about, not repeating what we've said here, not too much I hope anyway, but some feedback from the previous plenary, some updates from working groups and interest groups, and also some of the RDA experts, because there's a call for experts, but 4 of the 6 previous experts, I believe, who went to Botswana or from the UK, and I think a couple of them on this call, so be hearing from them as well. So yes, but there's the RDA UK page on the RDA website, and we're trying to engage more, put the newsletters out, and the recording from this talk webinar and the slides will be on that RDA UK page. But I think as already been mentioned, it's a sort of two-way process. So not just Juan and me sending out newsletters, but sort of getting sort of the conversations going, engaging with the community, and also trying to get more people to be members. We were already well represented in the RDA, but trying to increase membership within the UK, and as well as the adoption of outputs from the various groups. So I haven't seen any more questions coming through. So again, thank you to all the presenters. Yes, Hilary? Sorry,
just to keep going on, but on that last note about your national group page, just a clarification and an important piece of information. It's not clear for people. If, as an RDA member and registered logged in, if you go to that page and then click join, you are subscribed to the mailing list, and of course you receive all the posts and things. So you can just look at it, but you can also join it, and therefore like the way the other group mailing lists work. And that's how, of course, you can stay So I'm not sure it's always clear to everyone that if you don't click join and confirm that you want to join join that group. So for GDPR reasons, I don't think we can automatically subscribe people all the time. So
no, and when we sent out the first welcome to the RDA UK group, there was an unsubscribe option at the bottom, so people who don't have to receive this. So, thanks for that. It's 12 o'clock. I don't know if any of the other presenters want to just say anything before we call an end to it.
No, just thank you to everyone for joining. I hope it was useful.
Yep. So there's a few things popping up in the chat. Yes, thank you for everyone who's attended, and thanks to the panelists for presenting. And we'll promote through the mailing list when the recording's available and the slides. But thank you, everyone. I'll say goodbye.
Goodbye all.
Thank you. Goodbye.